Yes, I come up with this nice headline some months ago when I was asked to do a presentation about what we do at Force. And the last couple of weeks when I've been looking at it, I've found out that it was quite a huge topic of transforming an old labor-based service into an automated machine solution based on AI. So I'll skip through some of it because it will be history and probably a little bit boring, and give you some examples of what we are doing. And please, if there's something that is not clear when we are done, ask a lot of questions, and I can try to answer as good as possible. A little bit about me, Michael Fuglsang. I'm a Master of Engineering from DTU, mechanical. I took my bachelor at what is called nanotechnology, physics and nanotechnology, and now I've been working with Force on-off for the last 10 years. First as NDT inspection, where we did where I was head of our subsea inspections, and the last 5 years I've been working in our digital innovation, and now it's digital service because we transformed it from just innovation to service. Yeah, and I've just turned team lead for our robotics team at Force. Due to my background in mechanics, I'm not the one doing all the code. I'm the one making things come together and work. So who is Force? Probably you know a little bit about Force, but Force, we are specialists in a lot of different fields, and we have a goal to make sustainable products and materials and services, and secure that they are working and that as intended. And we are doing a lot of different tests in different fields. We have this is from our climate chamber at Lindø, where we have a climate chamber that can go to -40 degrees, and you can run a full heavy machinery in there and see how it works in all kinds of conditions. Yeah, but part of this, the way Force is structured, we are self-governed organization, so all our funds go back in reinvesting in the company to do research, and we are part of this GTS service that is kind of partly government funded, but is service technology service for Danish companies, and we are running different projects on together with companies in InnoBooster and different government funded projects to move technology forward. So, old labor-based service, what is that? Force is actually started back in 1940s, where we did the first welding was introduced in Denmark, and service was based around X-ray of welds. And then in the 50s, we had ultrasonics, and in the 60s, they started using actually ultrasonic for, if you know, you've been woman, a female, pregnant, you've done to ultrasonic scanning. That was kind of where it started in Force. The Force technology produced equipment for Gentofte Hospital to do NDT, or not NDT, to do ultrasonic scanning of actually it was pigs in slaughterhouse to the beginning, but it turned out to be the technology was also used on women. And we have our digital, or for industrial use, we have our P-scan solution. So labor-based service, NDT, ultrasonic NDT is a labor-based service. It's a man going with an ultrasonic equipment and doing an inspection. And he's actually trained to do the movement on the probe at the same time as he actually looks for the signal on the screen. So So what is he looking for? He's looking for peaks in the ultrasonic response. So we have ultrasound coming into the material. There's some geometry. It reflects back. And if there is occasions where you have defects in the material, you'll see a peak from that. So he's moving the probe around on the surface while he's looking at the screen. So kind of cross-eyed, holding on to the little probe down here, moving it so that he get a nice movement to inspect this weld all the way around while looking at the screen, seeing if there are small pop-ups. But we have places where we can't send humans. So the last 30 years we have been developing scanners and scanner solutions to send into areas where we can't send humans. For instance, nuclear reactors, deep sea, underwater, places like that. And actually this turns out to be a very, very good solution, because now we can collect data from the probes and then record it and look at the data afterwards. And when we have high quality data, we can also do machine learning on it. So we can use AI to evaluate the data. Just have some examples of where we are using this. Subsea inspection. This is actually me doing subsea inspection. So I would say that we automate it and we take away the labor. This is the diving team that is going to place the scanner on the pipe on the bottom of the sea. So we are not taking away the labor. The divers are still there to place the scanners, because this was shallow water. In other places we use ROVs, but they will dive down and put the scanner on. So they don't have to be qualified NDT inspectors to do the job. They just put the scanner on and we will control everything from the top side and evaluate the data. Another part is when we have very accurate positions of our probes, we can actually reconstruct a 3D image of the interior of the part that we are scanning. Here is a flange where you want to make sure that there is no corrosion next to the seal. So we do a 3D mapping of the data afterwards to make sure that we actually get correct position and we can see if something is about to leak or not. And lastly, we build large scanners for wind turbine blades to make fast inspections. So we can make inspections in matter of hours instead of days. So if you are to do the new blades, which are 115 meters long, manually going around with a probe, looking at the screen, it takes days. And with this, we do it in hours. And we record the data. So one of our big fields right now is wind energy. It's not that this can't be used anywhere else. It's just that we have a large focus for wind energy at the moment. And that's both in monitoring and in NDT. And we have a big margin of the market of blade inspection. So almost all the big suppliers of wind turbine blades use our equipment for scanning the blades in production. AI. So how do we define AI? Probably all of you know that we have AI, and in AI we have something called machine learning, and inside that we have deep learning. So there is a gradient of how complex is your problem. When I see on the features that are very significant for human trained to evaluate ultrasonic data, it's image recognition. They look at the image, they look at the screen, and they recognize when something is out of the ordinary. Our brain and eyes are very good at understanding the pattern that we see and see if something is out of the ordinary. And we have reasoning. So we are always going back and seeing, okay, could this be, or what could this be? When we train algorithms, we have image recognition on the trained part. So if we train on a structure of a wind turbine blade, then it will recognize that. It will have a very good pattern understanding from the trained data, and it has signal processing. So if we go in and analyze the signal behind the image, so the ultrasonic signal, we can actually gain more information than the human can. And of course, it does the same every time. Humans lack of doing the same every time. If we try, but it's not the same every time. So we want to build some of this reasoning into our machine learning models, to our AI. This is a wind turbine blade. We have a surface. So we have our probe running on the surface. We have some coupling, and we have a layer of glass fiber on the outside. We want to make sure that we actually get a high quality data, that the coupling is there. Because if we don't have the coupling there, we have no ultrasonic signal into the material. If you have no gel on your belly when you're doing a scan on a pregnant woman, you won't see the baby. So that's the same here. We need to make sure that our data quality is high, because if our data quality is wrong, the machine will interpret everything underneath incorrectly. And that's where the reasoning of the signal is missing from the human inspector. He will see that immediately. Then we have some features we have some carbon inside the blade, and we have a part underneath where the support structure is glued onto the shell. And this is what is actually critical, and this is what we are looking for. We're also looking for defects within this material, but we are looking for this part, the glued part. We're looking for what is underneath, the angles and things like that. So actually we are dividing the geometry into different parts, and we are doing different models to make sure that we have the most optimal model to take care of the problem that we are using. So if we have an A scan, as this is called, we have surface peak and backwall peak. So we detect these, and then we have a zone in here where we look for defects. We look for artifacts. When we come below the back wall, if we're looking in here, we look at the 2D image and look to see if we can see this web and how it's located, the glue thickness and things like that. Yeah. So one of the applications that we are using AI for is this machine called AMS95. Back 30 years ago, they started with number 1. So now we're at 95. This is 2 years old. And actually, at the moment, we are producing our machine number 115. Lots of these machines are ordered by industry, and they get the prototype. And that's one off. This one was a bit different because we actually got to sell quite a lot because it makes a difference. So we have a customer that has 6 production lines. They are using 40 NDT people to make this production line run and make sure that the quality of carbon profiles, the ones used in the blades, are of high quality, that the production is actually going as intended. And they have enough orders to double their production capacity, but they can't find skilled people. What do? They come to us and they ask if we can help build a solution for real-time evaluation so they can continue scaling their factory. And what we did was we invented this machine, and on the other side there is some ultrasonic probes, and in this cabinet is everything that is needed. Everything is boxed in because carbon fiber dust is quite critical to electronic components. So everything is IP classed. And what we found was actually when we did the SAT, the site acceptance test, they wanted us to simulate or not. We were supposed to get the same result as their inspectors, but we had a differ. And everything from that master coil they made for us was cut up and grinded down and destructively tested to see where we disagreed. And actually it came out that their manual inspectors only found 50% of the defects. And just by the settings we found for this machine to begin with, we got 80%. And now we fine-tuned the algorithm, and we are turning out 95% of the defects. And you say, oh, they missed half of the defect, but the defects they are looking for are tiny. That's 0.1 millimeter in width and 10 millimeters in length. That's not a critical defect, but that's a defect in their mind. So you have a 150 meter long break and you're a wing, and you're looking for defects that are 0.1 millimeter wide and 10 millimeters long. So it's okay to miss some of them. But the thing is that actually last week I sent away number 25 of these, because it's worked for them. And actually these 40 people that was in the NDT team, they're reduced to 8, and the rest of them is hired other places in the factory. And they've grown since then, because now they have 21 production lines running, and they are building a new facility for 40 more. So that's a good case. In the other case of having data coming in from these scanners that can scan a wind turbine blade very fast, we want to evaluate the data. Manually, evaluation for a full blade takes between 8 and 10 hours. And using algorithms that is tricked to tuned to the different areas, we actually down to 10 to 15 minutes of evaluation time. And that's the algorithm running for 5 minutes, and then a human doing an assessment of the results afterwards. Unfortunately, these areas with quality are kind of slow moving in respect of letting go of humans looking at things. We have a very strict, but we have a standards that say that you need to be level 2 certified inspector to do data evaluation. And we cannot have the computer do the manual part of the inspection on the level 2 course. So it will not run through the level 2 course. So it's a matter of time that until they actually find out that we can run these kind of algorithms, and we are getting results that are as good as the humans will do. But for now, we will need somebody to spend 5-10 minutes running through the defects that we found and actually tick them off, say that that's a real defect. Another thing is that manually, when you evaluate a turbine blade, you do it in sections of meters. So you evaluate critical measurements in sections of meters. But with the algorithm, we can do it in millimeter scale. We can actually do it to the resolution of the recorded image. So we can take each cut and do the evaluation of how wide is the glue, how thick is the glue, what is the angle of the web. All these kind of parameters we can do on millimeter scale. But that is not feasible, even if you had 10 hours to do it, to run through every single frame of this blade to do these measurements. So you do it in sections of meters. Yeah. To do this, I put the marker at deep learning, because we have some of the problems we're using deep learning have running neural networks to actually get good results, and others is more low-key decision tree. Is this a defect or is it not? Is this signal just high or is it low? And if we come a bit away from the blades, we have projects running on hybrid tests for the future. So if we, instead of replacing if we replace the inspector they're using during the data collection by a permanent mounted ultrasonic sensor, then we can do monitoring. We can analyze the data in the cloud using AI and get automated tracking of changes over time. This can be used for corrosion or crack growth. And then we can compare the results that we are getting with our digital twin. And we are working on accelerating the CFD and the FEA analysis by machine learning for these applications, so that we can actually not only compare the two, but actually run the model to predict when we are going to have a failure. Or we can give a time estimate on what to do to prevent the failure. Because in case of corrosion, if you have fluid moving through a pipe, it will corrode inside at some rate. But if you change the flow rate, it will erode at a different rate. Yeah. So back to the title. Actually, something was wrong. We're not based on AI. Oh, it's not based by using AI. Okay, so in the future we are looking at different things where we are using AI. So we are using autonomous drone flights, flying in confined spaces, flying in places where you can't see the drone, for in-service inspection. Now we have the model for analyzing the ultrasonic signal and using it on the factory before the blades leave the factory. In the future, the blades are mounted on turbines, and we want to do the same kind of inspection to make sure that the small defects that are in there hasn't grown, and that we keep track of the condition of the blades. So drone flights, different kind of collecting data from the blades in service. So offshore blades and things like that. We have different projects on that. We have fast ultrasonic weld inspection. We have huge metal structures that are coming up to support these turbines, both onshore but also offshore, especially the monopiles being bashed into the sea. We want to inspect the welds of those faster. The rules of inspecting to moving the probe is 100 millimeters a second. That's how fast the inspector is by the definition, can move the probe and still make sure that he sees the signal. But if we can automate the data collection and automate the data evaluation, we can do this much faster, because the computer will see it as the frame passes by. Real-time evaluation of the data as it comes in. We're actually already starting to use our models on the wings to make sure that our scanners are driving in the interesting spot. So when we want to look at the web in the image, then we can actually evaluate real time what is going on and make sure that our scanners are moving in the scanning the right location. And then, of course, we want to go from assisted to automated evaluation.
Thank you very much, Michael. Really interesting to give us an insight into how to inspect critical infrastructure here in Denmark and abroad. I forgot to mention where I did the introduction that, of course, those of you who are joining us online also are able to ask questions in the chat. I hope you have done this. I'm looking at Thomas, who is looking into the chat. So now I would like to hear if we have any questions. Either, yeah, we have one over here.
Thank you very much for a very inspiring talk and in a topic I haven't been so involved in with the wind turbines and so on. So just to get an idea of the size of these projects, because on your slides, of course, things are just happening. When you get a project like this in, how many are working on that on the AI side? And can you say something about the period that you're using for getting samples, data collection, training material, the learning, and ending up in validation and so on? How big is this project?
Oh, it's difficult to say on a specific project because they are running for quite some times. But I can say that the department that I'm in for the last 4 years have grown from 4 people to 25, and mainly doing modeling. So we're mainly taking in different data and models. The good thing is that some of our customers has already been using our scanners on their blades for a long time, so they have a lot of data. So they're not starting from scratch, but then every second year they get a new model. They do a new design of the blade and they have different features that they want to look for, so they need to have the model updated. Okay. So yeah, so it's very depending on the problem. Of course, we are using some of the same generic tools to do the geometrical tracking inside the blades, and is updating these tools to improve performance all the time.
Yeah, thank you. That's very interesting. Just out of curiosity, when they find defects, what do they do? Do they throw out the blade, or they probably don't? What do they do with it?
Oh, they don't throw out 60 ton of carbon fiber and glass fiber. They cut in and they repair it. Of course, based on reasoning, how much time will it take to repair it, and what will be the strength of the blade afterward? Because if every time you cut through this, you weaken it. But the thing is, for the carbon fiber profile, they cut out the defected part. But for the full blade, they will do repairs.
We have a question over here.
Thank you. We got 2 questions from the chat. So one from Tim Tronecker. He's asking, is the data that you collect, for example, is the pipe directly analyzed in real time, or you save it first the data on the device and analyze later? Is it real time, or how do you process the data?
In most cases, we collect the data and then we analyze it afterward. But in go back to this, in this fast ultrasonic inspection of big structures, we want to do real-time evaluation, because we actually want, the end goal is to be able to print directly on the structure where the defects are. So we want to have, instead of having, as it is now, you collect the data, you evaluate it, and you go back, you measure up, and you mark where they're going to repair it.
Okay.
But as it is today, they're getting the data in, and then it's analyzing afterwards.
Okay, thank you. So there is no yet threshold to detect and give an alarm or something.
That's what we're doing in this machine. Actually, this machine has a fine light over here, and you have a red light that detects that the data quality is low, so there's missing water or something went wrong in the production that makes the machine not collect data. And then we have a yellow light that lights up every time you have a defect, so they can see in the factory floor that it's actually lighting up, and they can see it on the screen, and it's sent directly to the control room. So they have a control room where they have all 21 production lines up and running, and they can see where they have effects happening, and go and adjust production parameters to mitigate.
Okay, thank you very much. I think Tim is satisfied, and after I have another question from Tiberiu Yuan. What type of neural net architecture are you using for 3D scans?
What type of neural networks? Oh, that's a bit beyond my competences. We are using at the moment, I can't remember what we are using for we are using TensorFlow for the 3D analysis, a lot of the 3D analysis, where we are analyzing the data both in 2D for the image analysis, then we are using 3D for things that are volumetric, and then we are going into 1D analyzing a single A scan to get informations as well.
Okay, thank you. And it brings to another question from Christian Willumsen. How much data and in volume, if you can tell more about it, and do you use GPU for the inference, and how long does it take to compute the results?
Computing a result for a wind turbine blade is this 5 to 10 minutes, a bit depending on the size of the file. Right now we are turning in terabytes of data from the big blades. That takes a bit longer to process. And I repeat the other parts of the question.
Do you use the GPU?
Yeah, we use the GPU to train the model, but we are yeah, and we are also running on GPU on the machines too. So we have the options to run on GPU, and of course, running on GPU, it runs much faster.
Okay. Yeah, I think that was the question.
We have a question over here.
Hello, thank you so much for the presentation. I have a question from a different aspect, just out of curiosity. So have you followed up with the inspectors, like what would happen and if they will get any other roles in the company?
Yeah, for the company where we did this in service or in production quality inspection, they got other roles in the company. And actually, they are quite satisfied that they are not standing by the machine and doing repeating the same task over and over again, and they need to be concentrated because they are running production for one production cycle is 3 days where they run 24/7. So they are night shift doing the same repetitive task. So they are satisfied when things are automated.
Thank you very much. Do we have more questions? There's one more online.
There is 2 more online.
Good.
So we have Nikolai Bertman, who is asking, do you save the location of flows in order to track damage when the windmills are in use?
Yeah, the reports save the location of and that means that if you have and we save the data, right now we are putting our data, the data that is collected by our equipment in the cloud. And the idea is to save it for the lifetime of the blade, to be able to go back and compare in-service inspection with production inspection.
And if there is influence of the location of the wind turbine and things like that?
No, we don't have that.
Okay.
We only have the blade, and then the manufacturer has that information where it's positioned.
Okay, thank you. And after It's Rebecca Matson asking, are your NDT scanner predicting on edge or centralized using data transference? If centralized, what is your view on edge AI and what are the hurdles for you to achieve it?
We are doing it centralized.
Everything is centralized. Okay.
Everything is centralized as it is now. Either centralized on that the data is uploaded and somebody picks it out on their machine and run this, the applications, and then we have projects to run it in the cloud, to run virtual machines to analyze the data, so that we cannot. So the inspector validating the results doesn't need to take down the full data. He only needs to take down the list of defects and the 3D point cloud, and not the full raw data.
Okay, so kind of you pre-processed to avoid the user. I would like to say that the people asking questions are saying thank you for the answer.
That's good.
Okay, do we have any further questions here? I have one question for you, Michael, because it seems that you have succeeded in taking this really labor-heavy method and turn it automate and quite successful. But it seems that you now are really labor-heavy because you have rise from, or is it 4 to 25 people in your department? So can you see that you can do anything more efficient or make use of all the knowledge that you already have, so you don't need to, or where do you see that the obstacles are right now for you developing your business? Is that on the labor, within the labor part, or is it, or can you do it in another way?
I think that one of the issues is to be able to get the good ideas. You need to be able to get the good ideas that actually solve the critical problems by the least amount of energy, so that we're not throwing a big deep learning model after everything. We are actually trying to come up with the best solution that can, the simplest solution that can actually solve the problem in a satisfying way, and that's require some good minds to think to get that.
So if I should be a little bit provocative, I could say you started out with the technology and then you find the right application area, but now you're saying you need to change the approach, having the application area, and then you apply the technology that's actually needed. We are solving the transformation by using AI. Okay, thank you very much. I think that this was very, very inspiring. I don't know, do they have a final question? Otherwise, I will say thank you very much to Michael. Let's give him a big applause.